Yo, what's up guys? Alex here, and in this video, I'm gonna be going through everything you need to know, pros, cons, pitfalls, pro tips for arbitrage betting. This is a strategy I've used for 6 years. You'll see tons of people talking about it on social media. There's definitely some cons, there's definitely some pros. I'm gonna explain everything to you in this video. So arbitrage betting is how I started gambling. It's how I made my first $40,000. It's a risk-free sports betting strategy. And I understand that sounds crazy, but I'm gonna take you through a little bit of a demo of arbitrage betting. It's literally me on a ton of sports books. Some of these sports books I'm max limited on, just hitting arbitrage bets, making $5 risk-free profit, $20 risk-free profit, $1 risk-free profit. I literally just sit on my computer for 30 minutes, fire off a ton of arbitrage bets. I think by the end of it, I've made over $100 in risk-free profit, just firing off bets for like 20, 30 minutes. But regardless, arbitrage betting is a way to guarantee a risk-free profit. You're day trading the sports books. All sports books set their own odds. So arbitrage betting is simply when two sports books have such different odds, they get so out of sync that you can bet equal and opposite outcomes, the over on one book, the under on a different book, to ensure a profit. So first things first, why would anybody want to arbitrage bet? And the answer is simple, it's risk-free money. That's what appealed to me. You know, when I started arbitrage betting, I just left college. I only had a $5,000 bankroll and I wanted to grow it. And arbitrage betting, I did a ton of research. I talked to professional sports bettors, sharp sports bettors, syndicates. I spoke with quantitative traders, my bosses I was working with at Susquehanna International Group who bet on sports, were professional traders in really complex derivatives markets. And arbitrage betting kept coming up and it's risk-free money. What's better than that? So you gotta remember, there are millions of lines available across sports books. Millions of lines. There's hundreds of sports books in the US, millions of lines available across the market. Each sports book has tens of thousands of odds up at any given time, and all these books are trying to set their own odds. So arbitrage is simply, you're looking for the mistakes. You're looking for the small, rare 0.1% of bets where two books are so out of sync that you can hedge. You can play the over on one book, the under on a different book to ensure a profit. So I figure let's just start out by going through an example of arbitrage. That's what I'm gonna start out with. I'm gonna give you a ton of pro tips for dealing with limits, maximizing your profits, everything like that in this video. But here you can see an arbitrage bet that I locked in earlier today on Bet365 and NoVig. NoVig is a peer-to-peer betting exchange, right? It's peer-to-peer. You're betting against other people, so you'll never get limited. You'll never get your bet sizes cut down. You can always bet however much money you want to. So again, arbitrage, two books, so out of sync, can bet the over on one, the under on another to guarantee a win. So on Bet365, I bet $1,500 on Devin Vassell's under 27.5 points plus rebounds at -120 odds. So on his under, I'm betting $1,500 to win a potential profit of $1,250. If he goes under, I win $1,250. On NoVig, right, I just followed the arbitrage calculator. This is a hedge calculator. So I put down $1,500 on Bet365. What the calculator tells me is you just bet $1,500 on NoVig. Here's what you want to bet, and you're going to make a risk-free profit of $54.35 regardless. So the arbitrage calculator tells me on NoVig to bet $1,195.65. I didn't round my bet size. Again, NoVig is a peer-to-peer betting exchange. You're never gonna have to deal with limits, nothing like that. So I just followed the hedge calculator exactly. This is just a hedge calculator. It takes the odds, you put in your stake for one sports book. So I put in $1,500 on Bet365. It tells me exactly how much to bet on NoVig, which was $1,195.65. So let's kind of go through the math, right? If Devin Vassell goes under, if he goes under 27.5 points plus rebounds on Bet365, my bet's gonna win. With arbitrage betting, you're placing 2 bets on 2 different books. One bet will always win, one bet will always lose. So if he goes under on Bet365, I profit $12.50. On NoVig, I lose $11.95 and 65 cents. So my net profit is $54.35. On the other hand, if he goes over, I lose $1,500 on Bet365, but on NoVig, I profit, $1,554.35. You can see the math below, right? I bet almost $1,200 at plus 130 odds. So if he goes over, my profit's going to be $1,554. Long story short, regardless of what happens, he goes over or under, basically, I'm going to win one bet, I'm going to lose one bet, but I don't even care because I'm fully hedged. And regardless of if he goes over or under, I'm profiting $54.35. That's the power of arbitrage betting. So I locked this in, the night before the game. So basically, I get my risk-free return a day later. The second the game ends, the second the Spurs game ends, Devin Vassell will either have gone over or under. I don't even care. I have no sweat. I have no risk. This isn't even really gambling. You're day trading inefficiencies in the betting market. So I don't even care, right? The second the game ends, I'm $54.35 richer. I'm either taking money from NoVig and basically moving it to Bet365 plus a profit, or vice versa. So the first thing you want to realize as an arbitrage bettor is you need to be using multiple sports books, right? All these books set their own odds, so the sports betting market is super fragmented, super inefficient. You can't do this in the stock market. You're not going to be able to buy a stock on E-Trade at $120 and go sell it immediately on Fidelity for $140. Financial markets like the stock market, crypto markets are way too efficient. However, in sports betting, it is possible. So essentially, the more books you use, because all these books set their own lines, the better. I've used over 75 sports books since I started gambling. A lot of these books I've done arbitrage betting on. It's a super simple strategy. You're literally just hedging to guarantee a profit when 2 books get super out of sync. You're just hedging. It's not complicated. A lot of people think it's complicated, and I have a bunch of pro tips, a bunch of ways to maximize your profits with arbitrage betting, but it's a very simple strategy at the core. You're just betting the over and the under to guarantee a win. More books you use, the better. So the first main tip I have is this first arbitrage bet was on NoVig. NoVig and ProphetX are 2 peer-to-peer betting exchanges. They will never limit you. They will never restrict your bet sizes. When I go into my live betting demo and I start live arbitrage betting, I'm showing you arbitrage bets on DraftKings. You'll see on DraftKings, I show you my net profit is over $218,000, which is awesome. But at this point, it doesn't matter how you make $218,000 if you have your own model, if you're EV betting, if you're arbitrage betting. If you're up $218K on DraftKings, they're not going to let you bet $10,000 on any play you want, right? Like, my bet size has considerably been cut down, but again, I don't really care. There's 75 sports books that I've used, and if I can make $200,000 on each sports book, that's pretty good, right? Like, I care about making money. That's it. If you want unlimited bet sizes on sports books like DraftKings, the only way you're going to be able to do that is lose a ton of money. If you lose $1 million on DraftKings, they will let you bet whatever amount of money you want, right? But if you go up 200K with your own model, however you do it, there's a good chance they're going to cut down your betting limits. Regardless, more books is better, and ProphetX and NoVig are 2 peer-to-peer betting exchanges that are legal, available in basically every state, including Texas. They're available nearly everywhere, and they will never limit you. No limits, no limits, no limits. It's amazing. Sometimes I find arbitrage bets between NoVig and ProphetX, 2 books that literally don't limit, and I can slam arbitrage bets for $100, $200, risk-free profit. Sometimes it's less, sometimes it's only $20. When I started arbitrage betting and had a smaller bankroll, I was making $5 risk-free profit. But again, $5 is still a lot. Like, you got to think about it. When I started arbitrage betting, my goal was to hit 10 arbitrage bets a day for $10 risk-free profit, right? 10 arbitrage bets a day for $10 risk-free profit. That's $100 risk-free a day, $3,000 risk-free profit in a month, $36,000 risk-free profit in a year. That's not bad, right? So anyways, long story short, NoVig and ProphetX, two peer-to-peer betting exchanges. You'll never get limited. I'll include some info on them below. But my first pro tip is these books are amazing for arbitrage betting because, again, you're never going to get limited. You're never going to get restricted. You need to be using them. They're super, super, super profitable. So we went through the basics of arbitrage betting. Now I'm going to get into some pro tips. I've used arbitrage betting on, over 50 sports books at this point. I've been betting on sports really seriously for 6 years. I've made hundreds of thousands of dollars in risk-free profit with arbitrage betting. So I have a lot of experience. I've made a lot of mistakes, and I'm going to share that with you. And again, you want to use as many books as possible. There are going to be books that cut down your bet sizes. And it's not even because of arbitrage, right? If you make a ton of money on a sports book, some books are going to cut down your bet size. For example, on DraftKings Sportsbook, I'm max limited. I've used this book for 6 years. I've used a ton of different betting strategies. And at this point, I'm limited, but I've made over $200,000 on this sports book. You can see my account right here. So, I've used dozens of sports books at this point, probably about 75, although I have an arbitrage bet on all of them. If I could make 200 grand on every single sports book, before getting limited, that would obviously be amazing. So I'm going to take you through a live betting demo. For arbitrage betting, some of the books I'm going to be limited on. Some of the books like betting exchanges, ProphetX and NoVig, they have no limits whatsoever. So you can basically bet whatever you want. They're amazing for arbitrage betting, these peer-to-peer betting sites, once you learn to use them. But the first pro tip I have is use as many books as possible, right? I'm in Virginia. There's over 25 sports books in Virginia. More books means more arbitrage bets. All of these sports books set their own odds, so we never know, which sports books are going to have the best, the juiciest, the most profitable arbitrage bets on a given day. The more books you use, more arbitrage bets means more risk-free profit for you. All these books take just a couple of minutes to sign up for, and most of them even offer lucrative deposit matches when you sign up. So when you start arbitrage betting, my first recommendation is take advantage of all the sign-up bonuses on all these different books. There's tens of thousands of dollars you can make just in taking advantage of this bonus money. All these books take just a couple of minutes to sign up for, and the more books you have, the more successful of an arbitrage bettor you're going to be. So that's my first pro tip. My second pro tip is on exchanges. So I said earlier in this video that betting exchanges, there's two main ones in the US that are available in basically every state, ProphetX and NoVig. There's also a third betting exchange called SportTrade that is only legal in 5 states, but I have it here in Virginia, so I use it. But what I wanted to mention is these books will never limit you. They'll never limit you, never restrict you. They don't care if you're up $1 million profit. They don't care. Their business model is not to make money off of you. They just facilitate trading. So I'll give you an example. I hit this arbitrage bet and gave it out on Twitter. I made $109 in risk-free profit. 2 books were super out of sync, and one of them was a betting exchange, ProphetX. So these 2 books were super out of sync. You could bet Dinwiddie's over on one book, his under on ProphetX, and guarantee a risk-free profit. But what I wanted to mention is on ProphetX, you'll see that they say the under 13.5 points is plus 136 odds. However, if you look at OddsJam, which is the sports betting software that shows you all these arbitrage bets, it says, Dinwiddie's under is plus 132 odds. So what's up with this discrepancy? And what you're going to notice is the way that these betting exchanges make money is, they're not trying to make money off you. They just facilitate trading. So the way ProphetX makes money is they charge a 3% fee on every winning bet. So basically what that means is on ProphetX, I'm not actually getting plus 136 odds. I'm getting plus 132 odds. I have to subtract 3% from the odds they're offering, which OddsJam automatically does. So I'm not getting plus 136, I'm getting plus 132. And that's how betting exchanges work, right? OddsJam automatically on the arbitrage tool factors in ProphetX's 3% commission on all of the opportunities. So it's not like you need to do anything, but I just thought it would be helpful to share. So my second pro tip is just understand exchanges, right? First pro tip, more books is better. Sign up for every single one in your state. I've used dozens of sports books. You know, if I just used one book, I wouldn't be able to get the results I get. More books means more profitable betting opportunities, means more money in your pocket. And the second pro tip is just understand exchanges. Exchanges are amazingly profitable for arbitrage betting, so you really want to understand them. The third thing I wanted to mention, my third pro tip, is learn how to navigate the sports books. You got to move fast, right? Arbitrage betting is market inefficiencies. You know, arbitrage is when two books have such different odds, one of them is making a mistake, right? Two books have such different odds that you can bet equal and opposite outcomes and guarantee a profit. One of those books, or both of them, are making a mistake. So these opportunities aren't going to last forever. I mean, some of the best arbitrage bets, some of the best trades, they only last for, you know, a couple minutes, sometimes even 30 seconds. So you need to be fast. OddsJam has one-click bet that makes it easy to be fast, but you should be logged into your sports books. You know, when I decide to start arbitrage betting for the night, I log into all of my sportsbook accounts, I have them ready to go, and then I use OddsJam one-click bet where I can click a bet, it takes me right directly to the wager on DraftKings, and then I can lock it in, right? Speed is important. These are market inefficiencies. They're not gonna last forever. You know, when I used to be a quantitative trader, you know, that's how I started my career, is I was a quantitative trader on Wall Street. You know, the best trades, they're not gonna last forever. You can't spend 3 hours if a client says they want to trade something thinking about, do I want to trade this? Do I not want to trade this? You need to be able to answer quickly. Yes, I want this trade, or no, I don't want this trade, or here's the price I want. So long story short, speed is important. Knowing how to navigate these books, understanding, you know, using OddsJam one-click bet is going to help you get in, get down more arbitrage bets, and that means more profit for you. So I have a bunch more arbitrage betting pro tips if you just want to see my live arbitrage betting demo where I'm using betting exchanges, sports books I'm max limited on, and make over $100 risk-free profit in 30 minutes. You can skip to the end of the video, but I have a ton more pro tips. My fourth pro tip is follow other sharp bettors on Twitter. There's a huge community of OddsJam arbitrage users, people who arbitrage bet every single day. Some of these people are making $30,000 a month. They have a ton of other tips and they know how to make money, right? They know how to avoid limits. They have tips for getting around limits and maximizing profits. They know which books are best for arbitrage, the best times to check for arbitrage bets. I mean, there are people, OddsJam users who spend 10 hours a day on the website arbitrage betting and make $30,000, $40,000 a month in risk-free profit. They take this super seriously. Professional sports bettors, basically. So follow all of the people below on Twitter. If you have a Twitter account, reach out to them, ask them for their tips, for their advice. I mean, it's an unbiased opinion on how to make money arbitrage betting. They'll give you their honest feedback, everything like that. So for example, that leads me into my fifth pro tip actually, which is use Edge Boost. So Edge Boost, I got turned on to by another sharp bettor who was using it. So basically, Edge Boost is a debit card that gives you cash back every single time you deposit into a sports book. So most people, like myself, for the first 5 years I started sports betting, when I was depositing money into sports books, I was depositing with my bank or a normal debit card, and you don't get paid anything. So this company called Edge Boost, basically what they do is, credit card companies, they make a percentage every time a user uses the card. So what Edge Boost does is it passes a portion of that revenue back to you as the sports bettor. It only works for sports books, but it works for basically every sports book, every fantasy site, every betting exchange. So it works for ProphetX, FanDuel, DraftKings. And the way it works is every single time you deposit into a book, you move money around, they pay you. So basically doing exactly what I'm doing every single day, even on max limited accounts, I'm making a minimum at least $250, every single week, risk-free profit just from depositing money into sportsbooks. And my recommendation for Edge Boost, the way I use it, is you have to play through the money you deposit. So for example, if I put $10,000 into FanDuel with Edge Boost, they pay me on depositing, but I can't just withdraw that money from FanDuel. I have to play through it at least once. So if I put in $10,000 into FanDuel, I have to bet through that $10,000 to get my cashback credit. So what I typically do is every single morning, I deposit money into sportsbooks with Edge Boost, right? You link your bank account with Edge Boost, and so let's say I link my bank account, my Chase account with Edge Boost, I put $10,000 in. Then I can put $3,000 in DraftKings, $4,000 in FanDuel, $3,000 in ProphetX. They pay me, right? They pay me cash back on all of those deposits. I just have to play through the money. So basically I play through the money, I arbitrage bet throughout the day, and then every night I withdraw the money back to my Edge Boost account. And then the next morning, I redeposit and I'm paid 0.5%. So literally doing nothing, doing what I'm already doing, depositing money and beating the sports books with sharp strategies like arbitrage, I'm making an extra, $1,000 a month just by getting cash back from Edge Boost. It's FDIC insured up to $250,000. Everybody should be using it. Basically, every sharp pro sports bettor, in the gambling community at this point is using Edge Boost. It's super easy. There's no fees. There's no minimums. There's nothing at all. It's FDIC insured. There's no downside. It takes 2 seconds to create an account. You link your sportsbook, accounts with your bank. You link your Edge Boost account with your bank, you put in money, and then you can use Edge Boost to deposit your money into any sportsbook, and you're paid cash back. They give you a percentage of the revenue they're making. It's amazing. Every sharp pro sports bettor is using it. It's super easy. Withdrawals, deposits are super quick. I've had no issues. Every single week, I've made over $250 just doing what I'm already doing. So it's a free $1,000 in profit for me every single month. So I definitely recommend, long story short, using Edge Boost. Now, my sixth pro tip is round your bet sizes, right? So for example, if you're looking at an arbitrage calculator on OddsJam or any other arbitrage calculator, if you just Google an arbitrage calculator, what the calculator will tell you is, let's say you want to bet $500 on one sports book. The calculator will tell you, here's exactly down to the penny how much you should bet to guarantee your profit never changes, right? So for example, if you bet $500 on one sports book, it's going to tell you bet this exact amount of money and you'll make this exact amount of money regardless of what happens. And that's awesome. However, you don't want to sketch out the sports books. And this doesn't matter. It's not only for arbitrage betting. It's for any betting strategy. You don't want to be betting 503.21 on a sports book if you can avoid it, right? If the arbitrage calculator tells you to bet $503.21, maybe round your bet size down to $500, the nearest 10, right? Just to be a little more conspicuous, right? There's no reason to alert sportsbooks that you're a sharp bettor. Even if you're positive EV betting, you're using any profitable betting strategy and you're using the Kelly criterion, which is the optimal way to manage your bankroll. Don't follow these formulas exactly. If you're making $50 risk-free profit, and you round your bet size, all that's gonna do is if the player goes over versus under, you may make $55 versus $45. In both scenarios, you're still making risk-free money. 55 if he goes over, 45 if he goes under, just not 50 exactly, right? If you follow the calculator exactly, you'll make the exact amount regardless of if the player goes over or under, but there's no reason to do that, right? Just keep your bet sizes looking normal. That's a pro tip I highly recommend. I've always done that. And it doesn't matter for betting exchanges, right? I've said this earlier, ProphetX and NoVig, peer-to-peer betting exchanges, they don't care if you're making money, losing money, a sharp bettor, a stupid bettor, they make their 3% regardless. So on ProphetX, I don't round my bet size. Same thing with NoVig. I follow the calculator exactly, and I make the exact amount of risk-free profit regardless of which side of the bet, of which side of the arbitrage opportunity wins. So the next tip I have, my next pro tip, is you should still use sportsbooks you're limited on, right? So for example, on DraftKings at this point, I'm up over $200,000. I showed that screen recording earlier of my account showing I'm up over $200,000. I probably got limited at first when I was up maybe $80,000. They started to cut down my bet size, so I could no longer bet $1,000 on DraftKings, only $250. But I still grind out the profit, right? Arbitrage is free money and it's daily returns. Like if I place a 3% arbitrage bet on the NBA tonight for $100, that's $3 risk-free profit. I'm turning 100 into 103. The second the NBA game ends, I'm $3 richer. I turned $100 into 103. It's not like you're locking up your money for a long amount of time. So for example, even on max limited accounts like DraftKings, I still usually make about $1,500 every single month arbitrage betting on DraftKings. $1,500 is a lot of money, right? Even if these arbitrage bets, you're only hitting them for $3, $4 risk-free profit. Let's say it's $4 risk-free profit. You hit 5 arbitrage bets a day for $4 risk-free profit. That's $20 risk-free profit every single day, $600 a month. It adds up quickly, right? So there's some sports books that have cut down my bet size to $50, $100, $36.29. Some of these books have very weird betting limits, but I still use them all the time. And in general, mainline markets like spreads, totals, run lines, you can get higher betting limits compared to player props. Also, live betting, live arbitrage, you can typically get down more money. So that's my next pro tip, is definitely get into live arbitrage betting. You'll see a ton of sharp professional sports bettors talking about live arbitrage on social media. These books can barely manage their lines pre-match. So live during games, sometimes these arbitrage opportunities are 30%, 40%. I mean, you can turn $100 into 180 in just a couple hours, right? For example, let's say I hit an arbitrage bet on an NBA game that's in progress and it's a 40% ROI and I bet it for $200. So I'm making $80 risk-free profit. The game's already going on. An hour and a half, an hour, even 30 minutes later when the game ends, my bets settle, I get my money back, I'm $80 richer. And on top of that, I'm playing through money where I'm getting cash back on Edge Boost, which I kind of explained earlier. However, I will say one tip, another pro tip, I got a ton of pro tips for you guys, is when you're arbitrage betting in games, right, live betting, one tip I have is only click the stoppage setting on OddsJam, right? If you're betting when the game is literally going on, right? If you're trying to arbitrage bet and a player is shooting a 3, it's very hard, right? Because these books are constantly moving their lines. Wait for stoppage, timeout breaks, quarter breaks, free throw breaks, halftime, stuff like that, because the opportunities are much more stable. Live arbitrage is way more profitable, but also because the game is going on and every, shot affects where the lines are set, the total, the over under, the spread. Sportsbooks are moving these lines constantly. So long story short, just focus on timeout breaks, halftime. It's a lot easier to get these live arbitrage bets in and make significant profits. So more pro tips. My next pro tip is hit arbitrage bets that are also middles. So for example, on social media, I give out most of my bets on social media. You can see I gave out this play. And basically it was an arbitrage bet where the worst case scenario is I'm making $3 in risk-free profit. Bet365, however, had DeRozan's line at 20.5 points. NoVig had his line at 21.5 points. This play was just shown to me by the OddsJam sports betting software. So basically it's a risk-free $3. But if DeRozan had exactly 21 points, I would win both bets. I would win my over 20.5 on Bet365. I would also win my under 21.5 points on NoVig, which again is a betting exchange where you can bet however much money you want. It's a peer-to-peer betting exchange. There's no limits. So basically I'm making a risk-free $3, but I have this low-risk lottery ticket where if DeRozan scores exactly 21 points, I'm gonna win both bets and cash $585.71. So these are always fun sweats because then I'm constantly checking the Kings game and hoping DeRozan has exactly 21 points, which again, it's rare. It's hard for a player to end on exactly 21 points, but who cares? Throw this bet in with OddsJam one-click bet. It takes just 20 seconds to lock this play in. Worst case, I make $3 risk-free profit the second the game ends. 6 hours later, basically from the time I place this bet. However, I have this rare window of opportunity, 21 points, where I'll cash both bets for $585 in risk-free profit. So my next pro tip is check for arbitrage bets all hours of the day. Arbitrage is market inefficiencies. We never know when the juiciest, the most profitable arbitrage bets are going to occur. Sometimes it's 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m. OddsJam has alerts, so you can set up push notifications to get alerted for these arbitrage bets. But long story short, sometimes, the night before a game, sportsbooks start posting odds and two books are super out of sync. There's a big discrepancy. Whereas other times, right before the game, there will be lineup news. A player will be ruled out. There will be huge changes in the odds. The books go into free-for-all. So a lot of times like 4 p.m., 5 p.m., 6 p.m. Eastern time, when official starting lineups are coming out, injuries, who's playing, who's not playing, who's probable, who ends up playing, who's not playing, all of that stuff puts stress on the books because they need to update their odds. If Damian Lillard isn't playing, that vastly affects other players on the Bucks. So all the odds, all the lines have to change. And sometimes after lineup news, there's really good middle bets. There's really good arbitrage bets. So long story short, check for arbitrage bets whenever you're free. A lot of OddsJam power users keep OddsJam up on their computer during the workday, or they have the notification set up on their phone. And whether it's 1 p.m., 10 a.m., 5 p.m., 2 a.m., and you're just sitting in bed, if a good arbitrage bet shows up, the sports betting market never closes. You can always place bets. It's not like the stock market that closes at 4 p.m. Whenever a good arbitrage opportunity comes up, place your bets really quickly, lock in a risk-free profit, you're good to go. The next thing I wanted to mention is, you kind of want to avoid super weird markets. And I say this whenever you're sports betting, right? Don't sketch out the sports books intentionally. If there's a great arbitrage bet on Chinese basketball, in general, personally, I just skip it, right? It doesn't matter if you have your own model, if you are EV betting, if you're arbitrage betting, right? If you're betting on Chinese basketball, the sports books may limit you faster because they may be like, what's this guy doing? Why isn't he betting on the NFL? He's betting on Chinese basketball. What's going on? And if they notice, hey, this guy's betting on Chinese basketball because he has his own model, he's arbitrage betting, whatever. If they notice you're super profitable, you just have a higher chance of getting limited quicker, right? So again, on DraftKings, I made over $200,000. I rounded my bet sizes. I stuck to main markets. I wasn't betting on Chinese basketball, weird stuff like that, Korean baseball. I played major sports, MLB, NFL, stuff like that, NBA. And again, you're gonna get limited on sports books. I've used 75 plus books at this point. Some of these books I don't even arbitrage bet on. I'm still limited. Some of these books I EV bet on. I use different strategies. If you make 200 grand on a sports book, there's a good chance they're gonna cut down your bet size. Except for ProphetX and NoVig, which again are two betting exchanges, peer-to-peer sites that will never limit you. But long story short, avoid weird markets. The next thing I wanted to mention is, so making money in general. I mean, maybe we won't move on to the next pro tip. However you're making money, like however I made $216K on DraftKings, they're gonna limit me. DraftKings is a $20 billion company. They're not stupid. They limit people every single day. It's pretty obvious for DraftKings if a user, it's one line of code. If user is up 200K in profit, cut down their bet size from $1,000 to $100. It doesn't mean I can't play on DraftKings, I can't make money. It's just like, it's obvious, right? Like it's pretty simple to do for these sports books. If you make 100 grand on them, there's a good chance your bet sizes get limited. It doesn't relate to arbitrage, it relates to making money. Arbitrage is an incredible strategy for making money. I've made hundreds of thousands of dollars risk-free profit. Most of my profit on DraftKings, where I made 200K, came from arbitrage betting. But anyways, what I wanted to say next is when you're arbitrage betting, it's important that you check how much you can bet, right? So like, for example, if I bet $500 on Bet365 or ProphetX or whatever on an arbitrage opportunity, and then I go over to the second sports book and they limit me, they say, hey, we're not taking $500, we're only taking $100, then you're not screwed, you're kind of screwed, but it's not the end of the world. Some sports books allow you to cash out your bet. But long story short, some books like FanDuel will tell you your max betting limit in advance, right? If I just plug into FanDuel a big number, and same thing with DraftKings, same thing with most books, is if you put in $50,000, they'll tell you, whoa, you can only bet $300. So usually on FanDuel, if I'm arbitrage betting, because I'm max limited on FanDuel, I'm on the worst limits on FanDuel, I still make $1,500 a month. Arbitrage betting with FanDuel is what I'll do is I'll just put in like $5,000, $2,000, and FanDuel will tell me you can only bet $347, and then I can plug that number into the arbitrage calculator. So that kind of makes it, because obviously you don't want to place one bet and then you're not able to bet enough on the other side, because then you're not going to make a risk-free profit. The next thing I wanted to mention, I kind of said it earlier, speed is important, is when I'm locking in these arbitrage bets, I hit submit at the exact same time. Not exact same time, sometimes it's like half a second apart, but arbitrage betting is, right, you're betting the over and the under to guarantee a profit. If you wait 5 minutes, the line may move, the odds may change. So when I'm arbitrage betting, as you'll see in my demo, I click submit on one book and then submit on another book. You try to move quickly because if you wait 5 minutes, the odds may change. Now, the final pro tip I have is when I'm arbitrage betting, because odds can always change. I mean, there will inevitably be times you place a bet, you place your arbitrage bet, and then the other side moves, right? It's just part of the game. Usually you can just cash out, get your money back, and it's fine. But what I was gonna say is usually what I do is I place the side that I think has better value first. So whenever you're arbitrage betting, you're placing two bets on two different books to guarantee a profit. So one of the bets has to be profitable, right? If you can place bets on two different sports books, one on the over, one on the under to guarantee a profit, one of those bets has to be profitable. So usually I just take a look at the odds, see which book seems more off from the market, and that's the side of the arbitrage bet I place first, because that's much more likely to be the EV side, the side with value, the sportsbook that is screwing up, the sportsbook that is quicker to adjust their odds. So my final pro tip before we get into this demo is you're not gonna hit every arbitrage bet, right? There are gonna be times you click in with OddsJam one-click bet, the odds have already changed. The line's already gone. Again, these are market inefficiencies. They're mistakes on sportsbooks. You're capitalizing on inefficiencies in the market. The same way when I was a trader on Wall Street, there were times I wanted to make a trade and another trading firm made the trade first. They were faster, they were quicker. So you don't need a hit rate of 100%, right? Like as an example, let's say you only hit 50% of your arbitrage bets, and every arbitrage bet on average makes $10 risk-free profit. So let's say you try to hit 20 arbitrage bets in a night, although again with OddsJam one-click bet, it takes literally 20 seconds to go to the books and lock these in. You should be able to hit many more if you use a variety of sports books and sign up for a bunch and take advantage of their sign-up bonuses. But let's say you try to place 20 and you only get 10 down. Who cares, right? Who cares about the 10 you missed? You hit 10 arbitrage bets for $10 risk-free profit. That's $100 risk-free profit you just made. Sure, it could have been $200, but who cares? You still made $100 risk-free in a day. That's that's $3,000 risk-free in a month. The same way on DraftKings, I used to be able to make $10,000 a month on DraftKings arbitrage betting. Now, because I've made 200 grand on this book, they've cut down my betting limits. I can only make $1,500 a month risk-free. Still pretty good, right? Sure, it's not 10,000. It feels crappier, to know more about arbitrage betting and make less money, make $2,000, $3,000 a month on DraftKings as opposed to 10,000, 15,000. But who cares? It is what it is, right? Like, regardless, every arbitrage bet you hit is a risk-free profit. So even $3, $4, $5, you get the hang of it. Like, hit 5 arbitrage bets for $20 is the same as hitting 20 arbitrage bets for $5 risk-free profit. Takes 2 seconds to do if you're logged into these books with OddsJam one-click bet. But anyways, let's get into this demo. So here you can see the OddsJam arbitrage betting tool. I'm currently in Virginia. All states have different sports books. And what OddsJam is going to do is it's just going to default to showing you every single sports book in Virginia, but you can obviously filter books in and out. There's some books where I get higher bet sizes than others, which may not make sense, but liquidity is definitely an issue. So for example, on DraftKings Sportsbook, a book I've made, about $217,000 on, you can kind of see it right here. DraftKings is a book I've made over $217,000 on. I put in a ton of work into arbitrage betting on this book. My bet size has progressively, as I've made more and more money, my bet size has gone lower and lower. And it's not because I'm arbitrage betting. It's because I'm up $217,000. DraftKings isn't stupid. If you're using your own model, if you're positive EV betting, if you're arbitrage betting, it doesn't matter. If you're making hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in profit, there's a good chance the sportsbook is gonna, cut down your bet size. But anyways, let's kind of go through an example. So here we have NoVig and ProphetX, which again are the two peer-to-peer betting exchanges where you will never get limited, you'll never get restricted in any way whatsoever. Like on ProphetX and NoVig, because they're peer-to-peer sites, they don't care if you're making or losing money at all. So you could go up $5 million on ProphetX and you're never going to get limited. But without further ado, what I wanted to do is just kind of show you what I did. So on Bet365, which is a sports book in Virginia, right? Arbitrage is when two books have such different odds. The sports betting market is very fragmented. So arbitrage is when two books have such different odds that you can play equal and opposite outcomes, which means SGA is over on one book, Bet365. NoVig is super different, right? Minus 103 versus plus 128, and they have a pretty tight market, only 12 cents of juice. So these two books were so out of sync that I could bet his over on Bet365, his under on NoVig, and guarantee a risk-free profit. And what I did is I kept a nice round bet size on Bet365. It just logged me out, so I got to log back in. And I played, as you can kind of see on my screen, I played his over for $500. I didn't round my bet size on NoVig. Again, this is a peer-to-peer betting exchange. So on NoVig, like you're always going to be able to bet however much money you want to bet. So just follow the calculator exactly. And what OddsJam tells me is, hey, regardless of what happens, the second this game is over, I placed this bet around 5 p.m. The game starts at 8 p.m. It will be over by, let's say, 10 p.m. So within 5 hours, I'm going to have my money back and I'm going to be up $45.45 in risk-free profit, right? So with arbitrage betting, we're always going to win one bet and lose one bet. But because the two books have such different prices, we walk away with a profit regardless. So what we can do is we can kind of go through the math briefly. I have this little, spreadsheet pulled up. And what I can do is we can just go through this very briefly, and then I'll show you some other arbitrage bets, how I think about limits, stuff like that. So if SGA goes over 1.5 steals, I'm going to win on Bet365, $500, right? I place this bet at plus 128 odds. So I'm going to win 500 times 1.28, $640, which you can kind of see right here. I'm wagering 500 to return 1140. 640 of that is profit. So if SGA goes over, here's my profit. On Bet365, on NoVig, I bet his under, right? I'm always going to lose one bet, win one bet. So on NoVig, I lose 594.55. On the other hand, if he goes under in steals, right? So if he goes over and if he goes under on NoVig, what I'm going to profit is 594.55. What odds was this again? Minus 109. So minus 109 means 594.55 times 100 over 109. So I'm going to win 545.46. And as you can see, just like the arbitrage calculator says, regardless of what happens, if he goes over in steals, if he has 5 steals, 0 steals, 2 steals, it doesn't matter. Regardless of what happens, I'm going up $45 in profit that I'm getting back the second the game ends. So what I can do next is kind of show you, okay, that was awesome. Again, ProphetX and NoVig are 2 peer-to-peer betting exchanges. They'll never limit you. You'll never get restricted, anything like that. Bet365 has a ton of arbitrage bets. So maybe what I do is I just, filter it out for a brief second to kind of show you some of these other books. And I have no idea what my betting limits are going to be, on DraftKings. So we can kind of take a look. So for example, on OddsJam, these bets literally take like 20 seconds to lock in because OddsJam has one-click bet. I can literally click the bet button. It will take me right to DraftKings to the exact bet I want to be on. And unfortunately, you can see in this scenario, I missed the bet. DraftKings is already down to minus 120, so OddsJam already adjusted it. This arbitrage opportunity is going to go away, so I'll refresh. Right, this arbitrage play is now gone, so I'll refresh and maybe we can find another one on DraftKings, and I'll kind of show you what it's like to arbitrage bet on some limited accounts as well. So what I like to do, FanDuel is account I'm max limited on, right? So they're only going to give me 91.46 on this play, and on DraftKings, oh man, I missed it again. It's down to minus 175. So again, these are market inefficiencies. Arbitrage means 2 books have such different odds, right, that you are betting the over on one book, the under on another book to guarantee a profit. So let's see about Wiggins. Is this still available? So what I can do is I can go back to NoVig. Again, NoVig is a book where you will never get limited. You will never get banned if there's enough liquidity available. So what I can do is I can go to Wiggins, over 2.5 made threes. You can see at plus 150 odds, there's someone willing to give me 467.23. And then I can go over to FanDuel, right? FanDuel has this at minus 142. FanDuel's only going to give me $88.75. And you can see they already moved it a bit to minus 146, which means this arbitrage bet is getting even worse, So however, my max bet size will go up because the odds changed. So what I can do is I can lock this in for 91.25 on FanDuel, right? Follow the arbitrage calculator. And on NoVig, I'm going to bet 61.50. Yeah, sometimes when I am doing a video and have my phone connected, it just has a hard time verifying my location. But you can see here, basically all I did was I just made $1 risk-free profit following the arbitrage calculator. Again, I'm not saying that's super compelling. $1 risk-free profit. FanDuel bumped the odds. You really got to move fast. When you're arbitrage betting, they move the odds from -142 to -146. So this arbitrage bet is a little less profitable, only $1 in risk-free profit. Obviously not as juicy as the last one. But again, this game starts at 7:30. It's currently 6 p.m. So basically, right when the game ends in maybe 3.5 hours, I'm $1 richer. I'm going to win one bet, I'm going to lose one bet, and I'm ending up with $1 profit regardless of what Andrew Wiggins does. I'm like, he can go over, he can go under, I don't care. The second the game ends, I just made $1. And again, because OddsJam has one-click bet, right here, you just hit the bet button. I mean, literally, it takes 20 seconds to lock in these arbitrage bets. So even these ones that are only $1 risk-free profit, I could hit a bunch of them. I could hit a bunch of them in an hour and, make a pretty good amount of risk-free profit. So let's see what else we got, right? Here's one between DraftKings and FanDuel, 2 sportsbooks I'm max limited on. So what I like to do is, again, just check what my max bet size is in advance. So FanDuel on this bet, most likely because there's a lot of juice, they're giving me $2,050. What about DraftKings at plus 427? DraftKings, unfortunately, very aggressive limits. It's always very interesting to see. 23.41 is the max they gave me on this. However, for, Spurs plus 4.5 third quarter, they gave me 164.15. So I don't know. Sometimes these bet sizes are very strange, if I'm being honest. So DraftKings gave me 23.41. This is only $78 in risk-free profit. But again, the last one was for $1. This one was for 78 cents. So that's $1.78 risk-free profit, literally just sitting at home in my stupid ball cap, hitting some buttons, just clicking a couple buttons, which is, in my opinion, pretty crazy. And I'm only looking at a very limited selection of sports books. So what do we want to do next, right? Like what I could do and what I always recommend people do is sign up for more sports books. More books, the better, right? So I'm just kind of curious to see on Jared Allen over 14.5 points. So like this, for whatever reason, DraftKings would give me $105. So what I want to do is I want to quickly go over to the Cavs game. And then I want to pull up the arbitrage calculator, the hedge calculator, see what it tells me to bet. So how much liquidity is available? We got to go quick. 114.71. So DraftKings is giving me 105. 98.009. And I like to just double check things really quickly and then get it locked in. No. So this is not good, right? Basically, this is one of the cons of arbitrage betting, is this is one of the only ways it breaks, right? And actually, I should have placed the bet on DraftKings first. DraftKings just moved the odds, right? Before I could get the bet locked in, they moved the odds to -120. They kind of screwed me because they did that at the last second, which again is why you got to move quick. But at the end of the day, what you really want to do is just, DraftKings is a softer book. So I probably should have placed the bet on DraftKings first because that was the EV side. That was the side with value. Whenever two books have such different odds, and you can guarantee a risk-free profit, usually I try to place the bet. So let's see about this one, right? It's kind of fun. Every one you hit and you actually do properly, you're going to make a risk-free profit, which is kind of fun. So let's check out this one. Obviously, a lot lower of a profit margin. I'm streaming, kind of at a random time of day. DraftKings would give me 199.48. So this would make 274, but I'm not sure if FanDuel is going to take the full amount. They're not. They're only going to take 115.74. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back here. I'm going to adjust FanDuel to 115.74. It tells me to bet this much on DraftKings. And then I'm going to get those bets locked in. No. There we go. So here I have the two bets, right? This is on the Spurs second quarter point spread. And regardless of what happens, I'm making a $1.69 risk-free profit. I mean, if you want to make $20 an hour, this is pretty easy. Second the Spurs game is over, I'm up a couple bucks in risk-free profit. Not bad at all. Some books adjust lines quicker than others, but you'll definitely start to get a feel for it. So what I can do is I can put in this book, Bet365, which definitely had some juicy arbitrage bets. And we're already on this game. So what I want to do is on this sportsbook, NoVig, this is a betting exchange. It's a peer-to-peer betting exchange. So again, you'll never get limited, anything like that. You can see there's $633.51 that somebody else, some other person is willing to let me bet on Sam Merrill. So what I want to do is I want to go back to Bet365. It's going to make me log in again. Here's my face. Here's my face ID. So what I can do is I can go to the NBA. We can go to the Cavs game, player props. Again, you want to try to move quick. There's definitely a bit of a learning curve. I want to go to Sam Merrill. Nope, I don't want to parlay it. And how much should we bet on this? Maybe let's try 500. They're going to take the bet, right? $500. I hope no one else already. And what it's going to tell me is bet 391.12. 391.12 on NoVig. Day trading the sports books. Regardless of what happens, I'm going to make a risk-free profit of $43.66. And we could go through the math again. So why don't we, right? I think it's helpful. I mean, when I was learning arbitrage at first, I thought it was very useful to go through the math. So we have Merrill over 3.5 rebounds, and then we have Merrill under 3.5. Again, there's literally millions of lines available on sportsbooks at any given time. Right? Like DraftKings, there's limitless lines, college baseball, college hockey, MLB, player props, like there's limitless things to bet. So most bets are an arbitrage. We're trying to zone in on the rare few spots where two books are actually so out of sync that we can guarantee a profit. So anyways, on Bet365, I bet $500 on Merrill's under at minus 115. So if he goes under, right, let's get rid of this. So if he goes over, I'm going to lose 500 on Bet365. I bet his under at minus 115. If he goes under, I'm going to win 500 times 100 over 115, right? That's just $500 bet at minus 115 odds. So you can see here, 500 to win 934.78. 434.78 of that is profit. So this kind of lines up. You can see the formula, 500 times 100 over 115. On the other hand, on NoVig, how much did I bet again on NoVig? On NoVig, if he goes under, I'm going to lose 391.12. And if he goes over, I'm going to win 1.39, right? I'm betting at plus 139 odds. I'm going to win 1.39 times 391.12. And again, NoVig and ProphetX, two books I'll include links to in the description with some more info on them. Did I mess up the bet size? No. I couldn't have messed up the bet size. I must have messed up my math somewhere. What am I doing, bro? So let's do this. Merrill goes over 3.5. Merrill goes under 3.5. And this is Bet365 profit. This is NoVig profit. So on Bet365, what did I bet again on Bet365? Let me go back to this little arbitrage calculator. On Bet365, so let's switch these. Sorry, sorry, but I do think it's helpful. So if he goes over on NoVig, this is what I'm winning. On Bet365, I'm losing $500. I bet $500 on his under. So if he goes over, so now it's correct, right? 43.66, which is what it says right here on the OddsJam arbitrage calculator. I'm just taking you through the exact calculations. So if he goes over on NoVig, a peer-to-peer betting exchange, you'll never get limited. I'm going to win $391.12 times 1.39. On Bet365, I'm down 500. On the other hand, if he goes under, right, on NoVig, I bet his over for $391.12. On Bet365, I bet his under $500 at minus 115 odds. So here's my profit, 43.66, regardless of if he goes over or under. So again, there's tons of sports books. I love arbitrage betting. It's possible on every single sports book. It is a very simple strategy at the core. Just when two books have such different lines that you're betting the over, the under to guarantee a profit. Again, even on max limited accounts like DraftKings and FanDuel, I could sit here for an hour and probably make $50, $60, $70 risk-free, which is pretty insane if you think about it. $50 sitting at home placing some bets. Like, not a bad life to live, in my opinion. That's why I started arbitrage betting, and it was very attractive to me. But sometimes you're going to miss them. But it's very fun to do, in my opinion, too. It's definitely a speed game. So here we have one on Anthony Davis. Let's see if I'm going to be able to be fast enough. So player combos, that's where you're going to find points, rebounds, plus assists. There's a lot of liquidity on the over, so I feel pretty good already taking the under on FanDuel before it moves. Yo, what are you doing? So FanDuel is going to give me 191.20 max bet size. NoVig is a book, once again, that will never limit you. And here we have 453 risk-free profit, 182.92. Go, take the bet, bang, bang, bang. Another $5 risk-free profit. Second the Mavericks game is over, I'm 453 richer. Now what I can do is I can refresh it again. So, I mean, it's fun to do, right? Like, you really are just kind of day trading these books. Rebet Prop City is, a little hard to use. I am kind of curious now on DraftKings, because DraftKings I've been max limited. I showed you. I'm up so much money on that stupid sports book. But what I want to see is maybe they'll give me something good. So we have SAR over 28.5. How much liquidity? Only $183. But again, DraftKings, I'm usually pretty heavily limited. So let's just see how much they take. $10. So again, DraftKings, it kind of sucks, but it's part of the game. 21 cents. I mean, still making 20 cents and making 20 cents and, for a couple button clicks. Who cares, right? Like, you don't need to hit every single one. You don't need to make $50 risk-free on every single one, even $5, right? If you can hit 10 arbitrage bets a day for $5, that's $50 a day in risk-free profit over the course of a month. That's $1,500, which is pretty crazy if you think about it. What about BAM blocks? Anyways, and again, these lines are always moving on sportsbooks based on injuries, stuff like that. So honestly, you kind of just want to sit on this site. I mean, obviously you can't be on it 24/7, but you want to use it as much as possible. I am just kind of curious now at this point, how much would DraftKings give me on Miles Turner under in blocks? $9. So this one, it's like, not even really worth arbitrage betting on DraftKings. Whoa. That one just moved. You can see NoVig move from minus 102 to minus 111. So minus 102 went down to minus 111. So this play is now gone. Again, OddsJam is updating millions of lines every second to kind of point out these arbitrage bets. Now I'm curious, how much would they give me on BAM blocks? It's always interesting to see. So for some reason on Miles Turner, they were trying to limit me to like nothing. On Bam Blocks, for whatever reason, they'd actually let me get $38.09. So I could arbitrage bet this for $57 in profit. Let's see how quickly I can make 57 cents in risk-free profit. Again, the second the game's over later tonight, I'm richer by however much it says. And there's plenty of liquidity. So 39.43 is what I want to bet on NoVig, regardless of what happens. Again, I've already went through the math for some other ones, so I won't bother you with it again. But, just made 57 cents in risk-free profit. Just for clicking a few buttons, second the game's over, I'm getting that money back. So you can see here what my DraftKings looks like is these are all basically arbitrage bets, right? Like some DraftKings gives me $39.20, some $167, $18, $20, $60, each one making a few dollars in risk-free profit, even on a max limited DraftKings account. But regardless, you kind of get the point. I don't have to sit here all day. I could sit here all day and make thousands of dollars in risk-free profit, but I just wanted to do a quick little demo of how I use the OddsJam ARB tool. Again, NoVig and ProphetX, these two books, amazing for arbitrage betting. They're legal, available in basically every state, including Texas, basically everywhere. And they have no limits. You can arbitrage bet however much money you want, which is incredible.